Hi and welcome. In this playlist, we're going to walk through setting up a ZStream account so you can start managing dev projects, roadmaps, quality assurance, and much more. The first thing we're going to do is go to zasmic.io. The link will be in the description below, and click Get Started. So I'm going to create an account called hello.zasmic.io, and this is where we're going to be able to access our account online. I'll create it with grady@zasmic.com. And then we'll see that I need to go and confirm this account in my email. So I'll pull it up and reload. And after a second, there we have it. And I'll go ahead and click this link to confirm that I want to create this account. Now, if you don't already have a ZStream account associated with that email address, you will enter your first name here and a few different things. But I already have an account that's associated with this email address, so I'm just going to confirm that I want to create this new account with the same user account. And I'll go ahead and create a project called My First Project, and I'll leave the key how it is. You could go ahead and edit it if you wanted to. This is going to be a unique key that you use to identify issues and send to your team to share tasks or different items. You're probably going to want to go ahead and invite some teammates here. I'm not going to do this for the sake of this video, but you can just enter some teammates' emails and they'll be invited to join your account. If I skip this for now, I'm going to look at setting up a workflow. So here I'm going to create, for example, an in-progress status, and I'll make it yellow. And then maybe I'll go ahead and create a needs QA status. So depending on how complex your workflow is, if you're doing software development or some other complex workflow that might have a few different stages of things, especially with QA, we could set up needs QA on our development server, for example, and then ready for our staging server, needs QA on our staging server, and then finally ready for production. I'll keep this pretty simple for now, and we'll keep done as the only resolved status here. We can always edit this later in our project settings. Now, when I click Get Started here, I'm going to see the Admin tab and some account settings. And the first thing you're likely going to want to do, especially if you skipped inviting people earlier, is go ahead and invite some other users or teammates to your account. So you can just enter their emails, invite them here, and when you invite them, you'll see the status of those invites here. This is a fresh account. I'm not going to invite anyone at the moment, but that's what you would want to do. You're also going to want to take a look at roles as you're inviting people and as you're adding them. So here are 3 default roles. For example, owner means you have access to do everything. So all of these, they're grayed out because we're not editing them here, we're just viewing them. But if we look at any of these, we can see owner has permission to do all of these. And if we were to look at reporter, for example, reporter only has permission to do some of these things, like read tasks, read attachments, but not delete some of these things, or maybe not update some of them. So these are the 3 default roles account-wide, but you can go ahead and create another role. For example, if you wanted an account-wide client role, you could create it from an existing role like reporter. And you could go ahead and change all the permissions as needed. You can also go ahead and search things, search for permissions as needed. So if I want to look at only comment permissions, I can look at comment permissions for these different entities, tasks, releases, and roadmap items, for example. So I'll go ahead and create this role. I didn't change too much from the reporter role, I don't think, but we can always come back and edit this role or delete it. We can't delete the default roles, but we can see what they include. Now, once you've added those roles and you've invited some users, you'll see the current users showing up here on this users list. If you open them up, you'll see what project they're in and what role they have in that project. You can also see the role they have globally on your account. So currently there's no one else here, but we would want to invite some people. They're going to be added with a default role, and then we can go ahead and change their global role as needed. I can't change my own here, but this is where we do it for another user. We can also deactivate users and see what roles they currently have, either in their project, on some project row, or globally. A user doesn't need to have a global role, and that's why we have roles in projects. So if I take a look inside this project that we created, my first project, and I look at roles inside the project settings, before we were looking at admin or account-wide role settings, here we're looking at it just for the project. We'll see we have these 4 default roles. And we can go ahead and create roles from these as well. Now these are all based on the same permission. So if I want to create a client, and maybe this is just for my first project, I forget what the key was called, or something like that, we can go ahead and create a role and create it from our client role that's a default, and then go ahead and change some things. So if our client for this project doesn't need to read our custom fields, maybe doesn't need to read our attachments, but they do want to upload and read their own attachments, that's fine. We can go ahead and edit these permissions as needed. And I'll create this special client role inside this project. Now, once we've invited some users to our account, they don't necessarily need to have an account-wide role. They could have no account-wide role. We can still go ahead and add them to a project. So in a lot of cases, you're going to have some users inside a project or a few projects that can view 3 or 4 projects, and maybe they even have different roles inside those projects, but they can't necessarily view everything at an account level. So some projects that they're not a part of will be hidden to them, essentially. So here there's no one else at the moment, but I would select a team member, and I would select a role, and go ahead and add them. And then their email would show here once I've added them. That's probably the most important thing to get set up from an account setup perspective is to invite people. And I'll walk through project setup in the next video. Thanks, and have a good one.